Number 1 Auburn took down number 2 Alabama 94-85 in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. It was the first 1-2 matchup in SEC history, and this was the Tigers' 3rd win over a top 2 team in school history, and the first since 1988. Auburn now has beaten 9 ranked teams this season, which is the most in program history. And this just in the latest AP Top 25 poll just released. Florida has moved up to number 2 behind top-ranked Auburn. Auburn remains at that number 1 spot for a 6th consecutive week after beating Alabama on the road on Saturday, as I just mentioned. The Tigers received 59 of the 60 first-place votes. The Gators, who defeated Auburn in the Jungle earlier this month, they received the other. Alabama fell to 4, followed by Houston, Tennessee, and Texas A&M with their highest rankings since 2017. Iowa State, Texas Tech, and St. John's rounding out the top 10. Matt Norlander joining us now with the latest AP poll that was just released. Now, on Saturday, we saw number 1, Auburn took down number 2, Alabama, the Tigers' 3rd win over a top 2 team in school history. Is it easy to call just to keep them at number 1? No questions there?
None, Jenny, none. No. Auburn is the best team and has by far the best resume. I wrote over the weekend for CBSSports.com. You can read this on the CBS Sports app as well, that Auburn at this point is tracking toward maybe a special season and an all-time kind of season. We have not seen a team a month out from Selection Sunday have a resume that is this strong versus the next closest teams in the pecking order in a very, very long time. So Auburn rightfully the number 1 team yet again. Bruce Pearl's group only has 2 losses, and they're against teams that are projected 1 seeds, at Duke, and then the home one to Florida. So times are good. Doesn't mean Auburn's going to get through the end of the regular season without at least another loss. I mean, it is a very tough conference, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. But to me, what they're putting on the floor, that is rightfully the best team in the country, and the ranking is accordingly so.
So Auburn beating Bama in that game on Saturday, that's Bama's loss. And you think about the stretch that Alabama is on right now. I want to pull up their schedule because it is not an easy one. How do they power through these next few games?
It's going to be difficult. I talked to Nate Oates before the Auburn game, and he brought this up. The 3-point shooting, which was terrible, 5 of 26 against Auburn, reared its head. Alabama's got to be better. What you're looking at on your screen right now, the collective winning percentage of those 6 teams coming up forth at Mizzou, home Kentucky, home Mississippi State, then at Tennessee, Florida, at Auburn. Those final 3 games, those could all be 1 seeds on Selection Sunday, Jenny. There's not a team in the country that has a more difficult strength of schedule from now through the start of conference tournament season than Alabama. So Tide fans need to brace for likely at least 1 or 2 more losses before we get to the postseason that could correspond with Alabama, which was a 1 seed in the bracket preview show on CBS on Saturday. The Tide could well end up as a 2 seed when we get to Selection Sunday. I don't know if the difference between a 1 or 2 will ultimately matter that much for Alabama. It is an improved defensive team from a season ago. I said on HQ over the weekend, and I'll repeat it here, I do think that Alabama will be a team that will benefit eventually from getting out of the SEC and facing teams that aren't familiar with its style of play. This team averages more points per game than anyone in the country. So I think the Tide are due for a few more losses, and I don't think that necessarily will reflect on their lack of Final Four capability. I still think that's among the 3 or 4 or 5 most likely Final Four contenders in college basketball.
You talk about getting out of the conference. That we're going to do right now. So we're going to go over to the Big Ten and the latest AP poll. The Big Ten with 5 teams in the top 25. What does that say about the Big Ten Conference in general?
Well, it says that the Big Ten has the best race of any high major league left. Auburn has separated itself in the SEC. Houston has separated itself in the Big 12. St. John's has separated itself in the Big East, and Duke has separated itself in the ACC. The Big Ten is the one that we really have quite an incredible race ahead of us here. You see these teams here. I actually think Maryland's capable of making the Final Four, even though it's last in the pecking order here. And look at that in order: 11, 12, 13, 14. Wisconsin, Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State. Michigan has a 1-game lead right now, technically, in the Big Ten. I'm going to be at the Michigan State-Michigan game Friday later on this week. Each team has something about them that I think makes them capable of winning that conference in general. Wisconsin, this is the most talented group in Madison since Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker were there a year ago. Michigan State hasn't had this across-the-board offensive capability under Tom Izzo in about 4 or 5 years. Michigan has something that no other team in the country has, and that's starting 2 7-footers. No team relies on 2 bigs more than Michigan does when you hit that 7-foot 5-foot marker overall. Maryland, it has more double-digit scoring than anyone in the country. And then Purdue has the third best player in America statistically and maybe in value to this point. It's been Janai Broom and Cooper Flag for National Player of the Year, but right now, number 3 in that race is Braden Smith, a key veteran, made a title game last season. So Big Ten's got some good stuff. Those teams all rightfully ranked in the top 20. The next 3 weeks should be pretty awesome, and I expect the Big Ten to get at least 3, if not 4 teams on the 3 or 4 line when we get to Selection Sunday.
Right now, ranked 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 20th. I mean, they're all bottled up right there. Matt Norlander with the latest in the AP poll. We got a big show Sunday on Eye on College basketball. More on that historic matchup between Auburn and Alabama, plus a league-by-league rundown and whip around. It was a loaded show, 1 month until Selection Sunday. Check it out today.